The stars looked different from the observation deck of the UES Pathfinder. Commander Elaine Wright stood with her hands clasped behind her back, her blue uniform crisp against the endless black of space. The ship hummed beneath her feet as it moved beyond the edge of the solar system, the first human vessel to venture so far into the unknown. Earth was just a pale blue dot from here, barely visible among countless stars. Elaine felt the weight of 7 billion lives on her shoulders. They had all placed their trust in her and this mission. "Commander, we're picking up something strange," said Lieutenant George Miller from his station. His fingers flew across the control panel, bringing up a three-dimensional display in the center of the bridge. "It's big, and it's not one of ours." Elaine moved closer to the display, her heart racing. The object was massive, at least 10 times the size of the Pathfinder. Its shape was unlike anything humans had designed, smooth curves and angles that seemed to bend in impossible ways. "Is it an asteroid?" asked Elaine, though she already knew the answer. "No, ma'am," said George. "It's moving against the stellar currents, and there's an energy signature unlike anything in our database." The bridge fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. After centuries of looking up at the stars and wondering if we were alone, humanity was about to get its answer. "Open all communication channels," ordered Elaine. "Standard greeting protocol." For 3/10 hours, the Pathfinder maintained position as signals were sent toward the alien vessel. The crew barely spoke, each person lost in their own thoughts about what this moment meant for human history. Then, without warning, the alien ship moved. In seconds, it covered the distance that would have taken the Pathfinder half a day. It stopped just 5 kilometers away, close enough that they could now see its surface through the viewport, a shimmering metal that seemed to change color as they watched. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission," said Communications Officer Diane Kelly. Her voice shook slightly. It's in English." A screen lit up on the bridge, showing a humanoid figure with pale blue skin and large, dark eyes. When it spoke, its mouth moved in perfect sync with the words. "Greetings, people of Earth. I am Ambassador Zorluk of the Altarian species and representative of the Galactic Council. We have been observing your world for some time. Your achievement of faster-than-light travel has qualified your species for first contact." Elaine stepped forward. Her training hadn't covered this, but she knew the importance of appearing confident. "I am Commander Elaine Wright of the United Earth Space Force. On behalf of humanity, we welcome peaceful contact." Zorlak's expression was hard to read, but his tone seemed friendly. "The Galactic Council oversees more than 200 spacefaring civilizations across this sector of the galaxy. We extend an invitation to Earth to send representatives to observe Council proceedings. This is the first step in introducing your species to the greater galactic community." News of the contact spread across Earth like wildfire. Every screen showed images of the alien ship, and Zorlak's message played on repeat. People gathered in streets and homes celebrating what many called the most important day in human history. Religious leaders sought meaning in ancient texts. Scientists demanded more data, and governments scrambled to respond. In Washington, President Gregory Ellis called an emergency meeting. The room was filled with top officials, military leaders, and scientists. At the center of the table sat a holographic display showing the alien vessel. "What do we know about them?" asked the president. Dr. Alan Murphy, the leading xenobiologist, shook his head. "Very little. They've shared basic information about the council's structure, but nothing about their technology or true intentions. They could have destroyed us already if that was their goal," said Defense Secretary William Carter. "But I don't like that they've been watching us without our knowledge." Catherine Ross, the State Department's top diplomat, spoke next. "Mr. President, regardless of their intentions, this is an opportunity we cannot miss. I recommend we accept their invitation and send a delegation." 2 weeks later, Commander Wright found herself back on the Pathfinder, this time with Dr. Murphy and Catherine Ross by her side. The ship had been modified with technology provided by the Council, enhancements that allowed it to travel faster than any human vessel before. The journey to the Council headquarters took 8 days, though it would have taken years without the alien enhancements. They emerged from FTL travel near a massive space station orbiting a blue giant star. The station was a ring structure large enough to house millions, with ships of various designs coming and going. "It's beautiful," whispered Catherine as they approached. None of them had slept much during the journey. Too excited and nervous about what lay ahead, their arrival dock was filled with representatives from different species. Some looked almost human, while others defied description beings of light. Crystalline structures and forms that seemed to shift between states of matter. Zorluk greeted them personally. "Welcome to Harmony Station, the seat of the Galactic Council. You are the first humans to ever set foot here." The next few days were overwhelming. The human delegation was shown to comfortable quarters and given tours of public areas. They met representatives from dozens of species, each with their own history and culture. The technology they saw was centuries beyond Earth's capabilities: artificial gravity that could be adjusted at will, matter converters that could create food from energy, and medical devices that could cure diseases in seconds, but not everything felt right. Elaine noticed how some species were treated with deference, while others were barely acknowledged. When she asked Zorluk about this, his answer was vague. The Council operates on a tier system. Species are classified based on their technological advancement, ethical development, and contribution to galactic stability. New species begin as observers, then may advance through various membership levels over time. "And where would humans fit in this system?" asked Catherine. Earth would be classified as a Tier 7 civilization observer status only. It typically takes centuries for a species to advance beyond this. Dr. Murphy was less interested in politics and more fascinated by the biological diversity. He spent hours in the station's xenobiology archives, learning about evolution on different worlds. But one evening, he took a wrong turn and found himself in a restricted area. Before he could leave, he overheard voices from behind a partially open door. "The humans are advancing too quickly," said a gravelly voice. "Their technological progress in the last century outpaces any species we've encountered. Their weapons development is particularly concerning. Their history is filled with conflict," said another voice. "They fight among themselves constantly. Imagine what they would do if unleashed upon the galaxy." "The containment proposal seems most prudent," said a third voice that Murphy recognized as belonging to a council elder he had met earlier. "We cannot risk another Krell situation. The humans must be managed before they become a threat." Murphy backed away quietly and returned to the human quarters. He shared what he had heard with Elaine and Catherine. "We need proof," said Elaine. "Otherwise it's just hearsay." That night, Murphy returned to the restricted area with a small recording device he had smuggled from Earth. He managed to capture several hours of council discussions about Earth. The content was disturbing plans for limiting human expansion, controlling Earth's development, and even contingencies for corrective measures if humanity proved too difficult to contain. The human delegation continued to smile and participate in official functions while secretly planning their next move. Catherine engaged council members in diplomatic discussions, gathering information about council protocols and weaknesses. Elaine studied their security systems and ship movements. Murphy collected all the scientific data he could access. On their final night on the station, Murphy transmitted the recorded conversations back to Earth, using a modified communications array that bypassed the station's monitoring systems. The message was simple. The Galactic Council was not the benevolent organization it claimed to be. Humanity needed to prepare. As they boarded the Pathfinder for the return journey, Zorluk saw them off with what seemed like genuine fondness. "We look forward to a long and productive relationship with Earth," he said. Elaine smiled and nodded, but her mind was already racing with plans for what needed to be done when they returned home. Humanity had reached the stars only to find that the galaxy was not the open frontier they had imagined, but a carefully controlled territory with rules made by others. Rules that would keep humans contained and subservient for centuries. That was not a future she would accept. 6 months after first contact, Earth received the message no one wanted to hear. The Galactic Council had made its decision about humanity's place in the cosmos, and it was not good news. President Gregory Ellis sat in the Oval Office, watching the holographic image of Ambassador Zorlik deliver what amounted to an ultimatum. The Council has carefully evaluated Earth's readiness for galactic integration, said Zorlik, his blue face showing no emotion. Due to concerns about human unpredictability and your species' history of conflict, the Council has voted to place Earth under a protective quarantine for 1,000 years. President Ellis leaned forward in his chair. Protective quarantine? That sounds like a prison sentence. It is for your own protection as well as the stability of the galactic community, replied Zorlik. During this period, all faster-than-light travel beyond your solar system will be prohibited. Council observers will be stationed in your system to monitor development and provide guidance. Any violation of these terms will result in corrective measures, and if we refuse these terms? Asked Ellis, though he suspected he knew the answer. That would be ... wise, said Zorlik. The Council's decision is final. You have 30 Earth days to prepare for the arrival of the observation team. I hope you will see this as an opportunity for growth rather than a restriction. When the transmission ended, Ellis slammed his fist on the desk. The room was silent for a long moment before Defense Secretary William Carter spoke. They're afraid of us, he said. Why else would they want to lock us away for 1,000 years? Because they think we're dangerous, replied Ellis. And maybe we are. But that doesn't give them the right to decide our future. The news of the Council's decision spread quickly. People reacted with fear, anger, and confusion. Some religious groups claimed it was divine punishment. Others called for immediate military preparation against potential alien invasion. Scientists debated whether compliance might actually benefit humanity in the long run. In Antarctica, far from public view, Dr. Olivia Grant worked in a secret facility buried deep beneath the ice. Since the return of the first delegation, she had been studying the enhanced drive technology the Council had provided for the Pathfinder. What she discovered was surprising. Their approach to FTL travel is fundamentally different from ours, she explained to President Ellis during a secure video call. But not necessarily better. In fact, our dimensional folding theory might actually be more efficient. We just haven't had the resources to fully develop it. Are you saying we could build ships that outperform theirs? Asked Ellis. Potentially? Yes, and more importantly, ships that operate on principles their sensors might not be calibrated to detect. Ellis nodded slowly. How quickly could we develop this technology? With unlimited resources, 6 months for a prototype. Maybe a year for a full-scale vessel? Ellis ended the call and immediately summoned his most trusted advisors. In a bunker beneath the White House, he outlined what would later be called Operation Exodus. The Council has made it clear they see us as children to be controlled, he told the small group. But we've never been good at following orders. Dr. Grant believes we can develop ships that could evade Council detection. I propose we begin immediate construction of a fleet while publicly appearing to consider the Council's terms. Catherine Ross, recently appointed as Earth's official ambassador to the Council, raised a concern. The moment we start building ships, they'll know their observers are already in our system. Then we build them where they won't look, said Secretary Carter. Underground facilities, asteroid bases, the dark side of the moon. We spread the work out, keep each site working on different components. No one sees the whole picture except... Yes? And what's the goal? Asked Vice President Maria Ortiz. Where would we go? Anywhere but here, replied Ellis. We find a star system beyond Council space, establish a colony, and secure humanity's freedom to determine its own path. The plan was set in motion immediately. While publicly, Ellis requested more time to consider the Council's terms, claiming Earth's nations needed to reach consensus. Secretly, the greatest engineering project in human history began in shipyards. Hidden in hollowed-out asteroids, massive vessels took shape. In underground facilities across the globe, scientists worked on advanced propulsion, life support, and defense systems. The project consumed enormous resources, all carefully hidden from Council observers through false economic data and diverted energy signatures. Dr. Grant worked tirelessly, refining her FTL design with the help of engineer Paul Martinez. Their breakthrough came 3 months into the project. "We've done it," she told Martinez as they watched the test module disappear and reappear across their lab. "The quantum shadow drive works. It leaves almost no trace in space-time." "Will it scale up to ship size?" asked Martinez. "It has to," replied Grant. "We don't have a choice." While the secret work continued, Catherine Ross returned to the Council as Earth's representative. Her job was perhaps the most difficult to appear cooperative while buying time. She engaged Council members in endless discussions about the details of the quarantine, requesting modifications and clarifications that required lengthy deliberations. "My government is concerned about the economic impact of restricted space travel," she told the Council during one session. "Our colonies on Mars and Europa depend on regular supply ships. Intrasystem travel will be permitted," conceded a Council elder. "But all vessels must be registered and monitored. That will require establishing new regulatory systems on Earth. We'll need time to implement them." Week by week, she delayed the inevitable while gathering valuable intelligence on Council operations and blind spots. She learned that the Council's monitoring capabilities were not as omniscient as they implied. There were gaps in their sensor networks, shifts in their patrol schedules, and regions of space they rarely visited. Back on Earth, the first colony ship was nearing completion. Hidden in a massive cavern beneath the Gobi Desert, the U's Horizon stood ready to carry 50,000 people to a new home. Captain Ryan Collins walked through the ship's corridors, checking final preparations. The colonists had already been selected a careful mix of skills, knowledge, and genetic diversity needed to establish a viable human presence elsewhere in the galaxy. "How are we on supplies?" Collins asked his executive officer, Lisa Chun. "Seed banks are at 100%. Medical equipment and supplies loaded. Manufacturing modules tested and operational. We could sustain the colony for decades if necessary." "And the destination?" Lisa pulled up a star chart on her tablet. "Astronomical Survey Team has identified 3 potential systems outside Council space. All have planets in the habitable zone. We've designated the most promising as New Terra," Collins nodded. "How long until we're ready to depart?" "Final loading of personnel begins tomorrow. We can launch in 72 hours. As the Horizon prepared for humanity's first true journey to the stars, President Ellis addressed the United Nations. His public speech was conciliatory, speaking of cooperation with the Galactic Council and the benefits of their guidance. But his eyes held a different message for those who knew what was really happening. That night, the first phase of Operation Exodus began. Using shuttles with modified stealth technology, the initial wave of colonists was transported to the Horizon. Similar operations took place around the globe as key personnel disappeared from their normal lives, leaving behind automated systems to maintain the appearance of business as usual. In orbit, Council observer ships noticed nothing unusual. Their sensors recorded normal power usage, communication patterns, and population movements. If they had been able to look beneath the surface, they would have seen a species preparing for the greatest migration in its history. As ambassador, Ross continued her diplomatic dance at the Council headquarters, buying precious time with procedural questions and requests for cultural exchange. Humanity was quietly preparing to choose its own path. The Council had decided to exile Earth, but humanity would not wait to be locked away. They would walk out first into an uncertain future among the stars. The U's Horizon rose silently from its underground hangar, the massive doors above it sliding open to reveal the night sky. No rockets pushed it upward, no flames announced its departure. Instead, the gravity manipulation technology developed from Dr. Grant's research allowed it to slip free of Earth's pull with barely a whisper. Captain Ryan Collins sat in the command chair, watching as his homeworld grew smaller on the view screen. "Quantum shadow drive engaged," reported his pilot, Susan Nelson. "No sign of detection from Council observers," Collins nodded. "Take us out. Past the lunar orbit before we make our first jump. Stay in Earth sensor shadow." The massive colony ship, carrying 50,000 sleeping humans in stasis pods, moved through space like a ghost. Council observation ships stationed near Earth registered nothing unusual. Their sensors, calibrated to detect conventional propulsion systems and energy signatures, failed to notice the vessel operating on principles they had never considered. At the edge of the solar system, the horizon prepared for its first dimensional jump. The crew gathered on the bridge, aware they were making history. This would be the longest FTL jump ever attempted by humans, and the first using the quantum shadow drive. "All systems ready," said Susan. "Coordinates for the first waypoint locked." Collins took a deep breath. Execute jump. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the stars on the view screen blurred and shifted. There was no sensation of movement, just a brief feeling of displacement, and suddenly they were somewhere else entirely. The familiar constellations of Earth's sky were gone, replaced by an alien starfield. "Jump successful," announced Susan. Her voice steady despite the magnitude of what they had just accomplished. "Position confirmed." "No sign of pursuit or detection." Collins allowed himself a small smile. "Begin calculations for the second jump. We have a long way to go." The horizon would make 17 more jumps before reaching its destination, each one taking it farther from Council space and closer to humanity's new beginning. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the evacuation continued. In the Antarctic facility, Dr. Olivia Grant and Paul Martinez worked to refine the quantum shadow technology. Each new version of the drive became more efficient, requiring less energy and leaving fewer traces in spacetime. This was crucial as more ships joined the exodus. "The Council is getting suspicious," Martinez said as they examined data from the latest test. "They've increased their patrols near Jupiter." "Have they detected anything?" asked Grant. "No, but they know something's not right. Earth's power usage has dropped despite no apparent reduction in activity. They're asking questions." Grant nodded. "Then we need to accelerate the timetable. How many more ships can we get ready in the next month?" "With the current production rate? Maybe 5 more of the large colony vessels plus a dozen smaller transports." "It'll have to be enough." Across the globe, the silent evacuation changed. Earth in subtle ways. Cities appeared normal from a distance, but many buildings stood empty. Automated systems maintained power usage patterns and communications networks to create the illusion of normal activity. Essential workers remained, knowing they would be on the last ships to leave, while millions were quietly relocated to underground facilities to await transport. At the Council headquarters, Ambassador Catherine Ross played her part with skill. She engaged Council representatives in lengthy negotiations over the terms of Earth's quarantine, requesting clarifications that required the Council to consult its ancient legal texts and precedents. "My government is concerned about the provision regarding technological development," she told the assembled aliens. "The term appropriate advancement is vague. We request specific guidelines for each scientific field." The Council representatives exchanged glances. One of them, a crystalline being that communicated through light pulses, flashed in what Ross had learned was a pattern of annoyance. "These details can be established after the quarantine begins," it said. "The observation team will provide guidance." "I'm afraid that's not acceptable," Ross replied calmly. "Earth's scientific community requires clear parameters before we can agree to any restrictions." These diplomatic delays were buying precious time, but the Council's patience was wearing thin. Ross knew it wouldn't be long before they forced the issue. Her fears were confirmed when a Council scout ship detected anomalous energy readings near Earth's southern hemisphere. The ship moved closer to investigate, scanning the region where one of the evacuation staging areas was hidden beneath the ocean. In the control center of the underwater facility, alarm sirens blared. "Council vessel approaching," warned the security officer. "They're scanning us." Facility Director Frank Wilson made a quick decision. "Activate the EMP defense." A focused electromagnetic pulse shot upward through the water, striking the alien vessel and temporarily disabling its systems. The ship drifted, its crew scrambling to restore power, Before emergency protocols kicked in and it limped back to its patrol route, the incident could not be hidden. Hours later, the Council convened an emergency session with Ambassador Ross, summoned to explain. An unprovoked attack on a Council vessel is a serious violation, said High Commander Vexenar, a reptilian alien from the militaristic draconian species. This confirms our concerns about human aggression. Ross kept her expression neutral. My government informs me that our defense systems activated automatically when your ship entered restricted waters. We have sovereignty over our oceans, as agreed in our preliminary protocols. Your excuses are irrelevant, snarled Vexenar. The Council has voted to accelerate the quarantine implementation. A containment fleet will arrive in your system within 14 of your days. Any resistance will be met with appropriate force. As Ross transmitted this news to Earth, President Ellis knew their time had run out. He gathered his emergency council. In the bunker beneath the White House, now one of the few genuine centers of human activity left on the planet. We need to launch the final phase, he told them. All remaining ships must depart before the Council fleet arrives. What about the people we can't evacuate in time? Asked Vice President Ortiz. Ellis looked grim. We've always known we couldn't save everyone. The Volunteer Defense Force will remain to maintain the illusion of a populated planet for as long as possible. They know the risks. In the following days, the last major transport ships were prepared for departure. Priority was given to essential personnel, genetic banks containing DNA samples from Earth's biodiversity, and cultural artifacts representing humanity's history and achievements. General Nancy Peterson, who would command the remaining defense forces, met with Ellis before he boarded the final government transport. How long do you think you can hold them off? Ellis asked. Long enough, she replied with a determined smile. The automated defense systems will keep them busy, and they won't realize they're fighting an empty planet until it's too late. Just make sure you build something worth saving out there. Ellis clasped her hand. History will remember your sacrifice. History is written by the survivors, Mr. President. Go survive. As the Council Enforcement Fleet approached Earth, the final evacuation ships slipped away through their blind spots, using the quantum shadow drives to vanish without a trace. They carried the last representatives of Earth's governments, military leadership, and key scientific personnel. Left behind were elaborate holographic projections of cities and human activity, maintained by automated systems and the small volunteer force. Earth appeared to be a fully populated planet preparing to accept the Council's quarantine. While in reality, humanity had already chosen a different path, the greatest exodus in human history had been accomplished in almost complete secrecy. Billions had been relocated to new worlds beyond the Council's reach, with only a handful of brave souls remaining to complete the deception. As General Peterson watched the last transport disappear from her sensors, she turned to her staff in the Underground Command Center. Now comes the hard part, she said. We need to give them all enough time to get established. Let's make sure the Council stays focused on Earth for as long as possible. The Council Enforcement Fleet arrived in Earth orbit with an impressive show of force. 20 massive warships surrounded the planet, their weapon systems powered and ready. High Commander Vexenar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion, looking down at the blue world with a mixture of satisfaction and suspicion. Begin the quarantine protocol, he ordered. Deploy the monitoring satellites and prepare landing parties for the primary cities. From orbit, Earth appeared normal. Lights glowed on the night side, showing the patterns of human cities. Communications signals bounced between continents, and transportation systems seemed to operate as usual. Yet no one responded to the Council's demands for communication. The humans are being stubborn, growled Vexenar. Open all frequency channels. His communications officer complied, and Vexenar delivered his message with characteristic bluntness. People of Earth, this is High Commander Vexenar of the Galactic Council Enforcement Division. Your planet is now under official quarantine. Resistance is futile and will be met with appropriate measures. Your leaders are to present themselves immediately to discuss implementation. Silence was the only response. Send down the first landing parties, ordered Vexinar. Start with their primary government centers. Council shuttles descended through Earth's atmosphere, landing in Washington, Beijing, Moscow, and other major capitals. The soldiers who emerged were prepared for resistance, their weapons drawn and sensors scanning for threats. Instead, they found empty streets and buildings in Washington. A council officer entered the White House, proceeding cautiously through its corridors. The building appeared occupied, lights were on, computers hummed, and even coffee sat steaming in cups, but no humans were present. The officer reached out to touch a plant on a desk, and his hand passed through it. The plant was a hologram, as was much of what they were seeing. Similar reports came in from around the globe. What had appeared to be populated cities from orbit were elaborate projections powered by automated systems. The humans had created a massive illusion. Vexinar slammed his scaled fist against his command console when he received the reports. Find them! They must be hiding somewhere on the planet. Council forces spread out across Earth, searching every continent. They found some evidence of recent habitation underground facilities that had clearly been occupied until recently, launch sites for vessels that were no longer present, and power systems designed to maintain the holographic illusions. But of Earth's billions of inhabitants, they found only a few thousand in an underground command center beneath the Rocky Mountains. General Nancy Peterson and her volunteer defense force monitored the Council's search efforts. They had expected this moment and were prepared. They found the Denver facility, reported her lieutenant. They'll reach us within hours, Peterson nodded calmly. Activate Phase 2 of the defense plan. Across Earth, thousands of small automated defense units powered up. These were not designed for destruction, but for demonstration. They surrounded Council ships in orbit and ground forces on the surface, showing that humanity could have chosen violent resistance but had instead chosen another path. On the Dominion's bridge, Vexinar received alarming reports of the defense units. They're everywhere, sir. Thousands of them surrounding all our forces. Are they attacking? Demanded Vexinar. No, sir. They're just watching, but our weapons can't lock onto them. They moved too quickly. As the Council forces stood surrounded by humanity's automated sentinels, a signal came from the Rocky Mountain facility. On the Dominion's main screen appeared the face of General Peterson. High Commander Vexinar, I presume, she said with remarkable composure for someone facing an alien invasion force. I apologize for the lack of a proper welcome, but as you've discovered, Earth is mostly evacuated. Vexinar's reptilian features contorted with rage. Where have your people gone? No fleet large enough to evacuate a planet could have escaped our notice. Peterson smiled slightly. And yet we did. Humanity refused the Council's quarantine and chose to leave. The demonstration of our automated defense systems is not a threat, merely proof that we could have chosen conflict but preferred peace. This is impossible, hissed Vexinar. No species has ever defied the Council this way. Perhaps it's time someone did, replied Peterson. Ambassador Ross remains on your station as Earth's representative. She will deliver humanity's official response to the Council. At the mention of Ross, Vexinar's anger grew. He had assumed the human ambassador was as ignorant of this plan as the Council had been. Now he realized she had been part of the deception all along. On the Council station, Catherine Ross prepared to address the emergency session that had been called. She had known this moment would come and had rehearsed her words carefully. As she entered the grand chamber, the representatives from 200 species turned to stare at her with a mixture of shock, anger, and in some cases what looked like reluctant admiration. Ambassador Ross, began the senior elder, an ancient, being from one of the founding council species. Explain yourself and your species' actions immediately. Ross stood tall, her voice clear and confident. Honored members of the Galactic Council, I come before you today with humanity's response to your proposed quarantine. Earth rejects exile. We have chosen to forge our own path in the universe. Murmurs spread through the chamber as Ross continued. Humanity has established colonies beyond the Council's reach. We have developed technology that, in several key areas, surpasses Council capabilities. We did not choose this path lightly, but when faced with 1,000 years of containment, we refused to surrender our right to self-determination. This is unprecedented defiance, declared the senior elder. The consequences will be severe. What consequences? Asked Ross calmly. Will you pursue us beyond your borders? Declare war on a species that chose to leave peacefully rather than fight. That would reveal the truth about the Council to all your member species that you rule through. Control, not protection. Back on Earth, General Peterson and her team made final preparations. The last evacuation ship was ready, hidden in a base beneath the Atlantic Ocean. It would carry Peterson, Ross after her return from the Council, and the remaining defenders through hidden jump points to join the rest of humanity. The automated systems are fully programmed, reported her chief engineer. They'll maintain the defense network and continue to project the holographic cities for months. By the time the Council realizes it's all smoke and mirrors, we'll be long gone. Peterson took one last look at the monitors showing her homeworld. Activate the message buoy before we leave. In orbit, a small satellite powered up. It began broadcasting in all Council languages, the message repeating continuously, "We chose freedom over subjugation. We will meet again as equals, not as subjects." As Vexenar's forces continued their fruitless search of Earth, finding only empty facilities and automated systems, the message buoy's broadcast spread to all Council ships. Some of the younger officers listened with curiosity. Secretly impressed by the humans' audacity. In the Council chamber, Ross concluded her address. Humanity does not consider itself an enemy of the Council. We would welcome future relations, based on mutual respect rather than dominance and submission. Until such time, we will build our own future among the stars. Without waiting for a response, she turned and left the chamber. The Council representatives sat in stunned silence, facing a situation unprecedented in their long history. A species had not only rejected their authority, but had escaped their reach entirely. As Ross made her way back to Earth on a small shuttle, she smiled at the thought of what awaited her, not the empty planet behind her, but the new beginning. That lay ahead. Humanity had refused to be exiled. Instead, they had chosen their own path, demonstrating a resourcefulness and unity that even their would-be rulers could not help but admire. 5 years passed quickly for the colonists of New Terra. What had begun as a desperate escape had transformed into humanity's greatest achievement. The main settlement, now called Hope City, sprawled across a fertile valley on the New World. Its buildings a blend of familiar Earth architecture and innovative designs suited to their new environment. The population had grown from the initial 50,000 to nearly 20 million as more ships arrived from the Exodus. Admiral Elaine Wright, promoted after the success of the first contact mission, stood on a hillside overlooking the city. Beside her was Dr. Olivia Grant, whose quantum shadow drive technology had made it all possible. "Sometimes I still can't believe we pulled it off," said Wright, watching the bustling activity below. Children played in parks while adults went about their daily business, building a new civilization light years from their ancestral home. "Necessity is the mother of invention," replied Grant with a smile. "But I never expected to see 12 worlds colonized in just 5 years. The Free Cluster, as humans now called their network of colonies, consisted of 12 habitable planets, connected by advanced jump gates. New Terra served as the capital, but each world had developed its own character and specialties. Minerva was rich in rare metals and became a center for manufacturing. Avalon, with its vast oceans, specialized in marine biology and aquaculture. Liberty, with its rugged mountains and challenging climate, attracted the most independent settlers, seeking to test themselves against a new frontier. President Gregory Ellis, now leading the United Colonies of Humanity from the government complex in Hope City, met with his council to discuss the latest developments. The Jupiter outpost has confirmed that council ships still maintain the quarantine around Earth, reported Secretary Carter. They believe the planet is still inhabited, thanks to our automated systems. And our exploration fleets? Asked Ellis. Admiral Wright's expeditions have mapped 50 star systems beyond Council space. We've made contact with 3 non-Council species, who were either unknown to the Council or had rejected their authority in the past. Ellis nodded with satisfaction. The Exodus, while forced upon them, had ultimately opened up opportunities they might never have discovered otherwise. Humanity had not just survived, it had thrived. On the frontier colony of Liberty's Reach, the planetary defense system detected an approaching ship. Governor Lisa Chun was alerted immediately. "Unknown vessel approaching at sublight speed," reported her security chief, not matching any known human configuration. "Defensive posture only," ordered Chun. "Alert Admiral Wright's fleet, but hold fire unless provoked." The mysterious ship entered orbit and transmitted a message requesting permission to land. To everyone's surprise, the message came from Ambassador Zorlak, the Altarian who had first contacted humanity years ago. When Zorlak's shuttle landed at the colony's main spaceport, Admiral Wright was there to meet him, along with a security team. The blue-skinned alien emerged alone, without guards or weapons. "Admiral Wright," he said with a slight bow. "I come in peace and without official sanction from the Council?" Wright regarded him with cautious curiosity. "You've taken a great risk." "Coming here, Ambassador? How did you find us?" "With difficulty," admitted Zorlak. "But I am not the only one seeking you. I've come to warn you and to offer my assistance." In Hope City's government complex, Zorlak met with President Ellis and explained his presence. The Council was in turmoil. Humanity's exodus had sparked debate among the younger species, who questioned the old order of control and containment. A faction calling themselves the Reform Movement had begun advocating for a more equitable galactic community. "Your departure showed what many have long suspected. The Council's power is built on perception rather than true omnipotence," said Zorla. "Several species have followed your example and left Council space. Others demand reforms." "And the Council elders?" asked Ellis. "They refuse to acknowledge the changing tide. They've declared all who leave to be outlaws and have begun assembling a fleet to find and reclaim the departed species." Ellis frowned. "So they intend to hunt us down after all?" "Yes, but they face opposition from within." "The military resources required would be enormous, and many Council members refuse to contribute." "The old order is crumbling, President Ellis. What replaces it may depend on what humanity does next." After consulting with his advisors, Ellis made a bold decision. He authorized a diplomatic mission back to Council space. Catherine Ross, now Secretary of Interspecies Relations, would lead the mission aboard the UES Concordia, humanity's most advanced vessel. "This isn't about returning to the fold," Ellis told Ross during their final briefing. "This is about shaping what comes next. The Council system is failing and something will replace it. Better we have a hand in creating a more just alternative than leaving it to chance." Ross nodded. "The Concordia leaves tomorrow. We'll establish contact with the Reform Movement first, then request a formal meeting with the full Council." As the diplomatic mission prepared, another discovery demanded attention. Admiral Wright's exploration fleet had found something troubling at the edge of mapped space ancient ruins on a dead world, bearing symbols that Zorlak recognized with alarm. "These are warnings," he told Dr. Alan Murphy as they studied the artifacts recovered from the planet. "They speak of a threat that nearly destroyed all spacefaring civilizations 50,000 years ago." "What kind of threat?" asked Murphy. "The records are incomplete, but they describe a species that consumed worlds, or rather, consumed the energy of living things. The Ancient Alliance named them the Void." Dr. Murphy connected this new information with other discoveries from their explorations. "This is why the Council is so controlling, isn't it? They're afraid of awakening something." Zorlak nodded slowly. "The founders of the Council believe that certain technologies and unchecked expansion might draw the attention of these beings." Again, over time, that caution hardened into rigid control for its own sake, with most Council members forgetting the original purpose. This revelation added urgency to the diplomatic mission. If the threat was real, Neither humanity's independence nor the Council's control would matter if civilization itself was destroyed. As the Concordia prepared to depart, Secretary Ross addressed her crew. We left Earth to secure our freedom. But with freedom comes responsibility. We now have knowledge the Council tried to protect or suppress. Our mission is not just to establish humanity's place in the galaxy, but to help forge a new approach that balances liberty with security. On New Terra, Dr. Grant and Paul Martinez continued to study the quantum shadow technology, now with a new purpose. If the ancient threat returned, stealth might prove more valuable than weapons. President Ellis stood at the window of his office, watching the Concordia rise into the evening sky. Humanity had accomplished the impossible by leaving Earth, but their greatest challenges lay ahead. They had rejected exile only to find themselves facing a choice that would affect all intelligent life. We wanted freedom, he said quietly to himself. Now we need to prove we deserve it. In the darkness of deep space beyond the borders of both human and Council territory, ancient warning beacons began to activate one by one. Dormant for millennia, they sensed new patterns of energy, the distinctive signatures of quantum shadow, drives, and the growing networks of human colonies. Whatever had triggered their awakening was stirring again. Admiral Wright's exploration vessel detected the signals first. She ordered an immediate investigation, unaware that her discovery would soon bring humanity face to face with the true test of their independence. The universe had granted them freedom from the Council, but some chains could not be broken so easily. As humanity prepared to negotiate a new relationship with the galactic community, the shadow of a forgotten enemy loomed on the horizon. The Council had chosen to exile Earth, and humanity had walked out first. But their journey was only beginning.